Hello and welcome to the Bones Horror Podcast. This is episode 96. Annabelle. Here we are tonight. It's me, Kev. Jess is with us.
Hello.
And Ewan.
Hello.
And Larry. Full house.
Hello.
A full house. What have we been doing this week? Well, it's 2 weeks because we cancelled last week, which was my fault, and my apologies for that. It was kind of late notice, but I didn't feel that good, and I was rushing around, so decided to postpone to this week. But what have I been doing? Not too much, really. It's getting through life. Plenty of horror. Just trying to think. There are some important things I have been doing. Just got home from the football, watching my local football team draw with the top of the table team from London, Arsenal. So that was good. Literally got in about an hour ago. Jess, what you been up to? I know, new job.
Yep, I started my new job. That's about it, really. Went out last night. I'm very tired. I remember why I don't drink wine. And yeah.
What wine was it? White, red, or was you mixed it all?
Just rosé. Yeah.
It's a good way to get you drunk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't think I drank that much, but apparently I had.
What do
I
people
wasn't
tell
sick
you?
this time. So,
All right.
Yeah.
Dear. I had a few last night. I was watching some UFC. You guys probably don't even know what that is, do you?
Isn't that wrestling of a kind?
Yeah.
Which is like fighting.
Yeah, so I watched the whole show because it was on in, I think it was in Dubai or something like that, and it literally started quite early. It was on like at 5 and it finished about 10.
Oh, that's quite
So,
good. Usually they're
yeah,
really late.
it's in the middle of the night in America. But so I watched that. It was pay-per-view. Watched that. That was great. And then by then I'd had about 4 beers, I think, and remembered I needed to watch Dan's Hot Picks. So then I watched that. I think
you
we went
remember
to bed
much
about
of it?
12:30. I do. It was so good that I had another beer as well. So it was a long after. And then I had a Chinese as well, a Chinese food. Am I allowed to say that? Chinese? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to offend anyone.
Yeah.
So
As long as you weren't eating a Chinese person, I think.
No,
I was going to say.
Then you
But-
might offend someone.
But
Yeah.
eating a person is what we get onto in Dan's Hot Pick later.
Brilliant.
Oh yes. So, Ewan, what have you been up to?
Well, so the week. So I mean, the last podcast we did, I remember feeling very ill. I think I said so on the podcast, and I tested positive after the podcast. So
Yeah, you did.
so after 2 years of avoiding it, I finally got it. It finally got me.
Was it
And
good?
so yeah,
Enjoy it.
was it good? It was actually okay. It was just quite a heavy cold, really, or you know, if you had flu or something. It's just and you know, I've had not the latest booster, but I've had all the boosters and vaccinations before that, so I'm assuming that was why I had a decent time of it. And then so that was just basically like 10-11 days just inside. It's funny because someone texted me, one of my friends from school texted me and said, "Oh, you okay? I heard you got COVID." This was sort of like the tail end of my COVID thing. And we got into a bit of a conversation. He said, "Oh, yeah, I hated it when I got it because I had to stay inside for such a long time." And I was like, I've got to be honest, like I kind of liked being inside for that amount of days. I mean, that is kind of me in a nutshell. I'm just fine with it. I think by the sort of 10th or 11th day, though, you kind of get a bit stir crazy, and I had to go outside and went to the cinema, and that was fun. And yeah, so it's been just a mixture of recovering and work, and yeah, pretty much it.
Nice. So I like that from Dan. Hashtag you in for PM. So we are looking for a new one. So.
Yeah, well, he sort of replied to one of my tweets with that. I can't remember what it was though. I think it was around the time Liz Truss resigned. I think I was complaining about something on Twitter, and he's just like, hashtag you for PM.
That's a great hashtag. That it's good.
Let's make it.
I don't want the job.
Trending.
Just want to make that clear.
So, Larry, so you've been all over the place drinking Heineken, I presume.
Well, yeah. So I went to obviously Amsterdam, which was really good fun. And then came back, and then not last weekend was my birthday, which was really good fun. I also too drank a lot that weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just very chilled, just kind of like, obviously got back and then just mainly stayed here. Didn't really do anything major, just stayed in and just watched a bunch of stuff, and it was good fun. And then yeah, that's just working really, and then also trying to watch some new stuff, because obviously when got back from holiday and obviously starting from that birthday weekend, I just tried to find as much stuff as I could to watch. Not all necessarily horror, but watch some good ones as well.
Nice. Next week, it's a podcast I can't do at the weekend because I'm off to France on Thursday until Sunday night, late or early hours of Monday. So we'll have to do something either midweek or.
So you're just getting me, Jess, and Ewan.
So you could do that if you want. But I won't be around. I won't be around because and then we come back and then we got Halloween on the Monday.
Yeah,
which is amazing. Right. So we move on to this Annabelle, which I'm sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
A couple begins to experience terrifying supernatural occurrences involving a vintage doll shortly after their home is invaded by satanic cultists. Right.
Yeah.
That is it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to say something about it. So 2014, 99 minutes long, directed by John R. Leonetti. Don't know much of his work. I watched Butterfly Effect, but apparently did Butterfly Effect 2. Didn't know they existed. So it's a prequel to The Conjuring, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
Annabelle Wallace as Mia. I think I know her. She's very nice. She was in Peaky Blinders, I think.
She was, yeah. She played Gracie.
And someone called Ward, who played John Form, her husband, had a budget of $6.5 million and a box office of 257 million.
257. Sorry, that's a ridiculous. well done, I guess. But it was what? That's so much for this film.
It is too much.
So Rotten Tomatoes, what are we thinking?
I think I accidentally saw it.
Okay.
And I think Larry's in the right ballpark from what I remember.
I'm just saying 20 because I'd be upset if it's any higher.
Jess, did you like this, Jess? I've got a funny feeling you did.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
No.
Yeah, it's what it is. But
29.
Oh, wow.
Very cool. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be that low.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
Sorry, I better put some on silent. Apologies. My camera's going off. I watched it again last week. I think maybe a couple of days before we were meant to put out the podcast. And this is strange because I own this movie and I think I'd watched it a couple of times. But I don't remember anything about it until I watched it again. And it was literally so much of it. I think I must have been on my phone and stuff like that when I watched it the first time.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, because there are some great scenes in it. I'm not going to deny that. And I think Annabelle's kind of the star of it.
Yeah,
she was definitely the best actor, I would have thought. So, it looked cheap. I think I'm not wrong in saying that.
No, I mean, it's again, it's easy to say it because it's such an obvious cash grab to me, this film, because it was made, I think, very quickly in the sense that The Conjuring came out, I think, in 2013.
Yeah.
And then Annabelle came out in 2014, and I think between the films, The Conjuring made a killing, obviously, we all know, and they thought, okay, we've got to make something quickly. What it is. So, let's make something about Annabelle the doll. And you can kind of tell that it was. I often don't like saying things like it was a rush job when it comes to filmmaking, because so much is so, there's lots of labor involved and everything like that. But you can tell in this film, especially in terms of the screenwriting, I think so much was rushed. You can just tell, because it's so sort of. It feels, yeah, but not only shit, but bland. It was.
I'm not having you calling it shit though.
Why not?
That's a bit harsh.
No, fair. I have had more exciting.
Annabelle was good. The doll was good.
So we can't call it shit.
No, the doll was good. So...
I just find that this whole franchise, to me, I said this with the first one. The first one I think is okay. It's not great in my opinion, but that's, I think, down to personal opinion. I just find that they, as Ewan said, they're rushed. They clutch at straws really badly. Any property, like any sort of ghost story now, they're just like, oh, this is an urban legend or something, and they focus in on it, and it's like, oh, big production. I mean, Annabelle has 2 more sequels. I know one is a prequel, but in what world?
The second one's great.
But
I'm not having you say that shit. I'll tell you that.
But it's interesting because it's like, because I have a different opinion of Conjuring 2 than I have to you, Lawrence, obviously. But it was interesting how, because I mean, the thing is with James Wan is that you can tell he's at least trying. I think, whatever you think about. I think he's at least he's
a good director. I will give 100% would never say he's a shit director. Like, he is a good director, but it just pains me to see why he has fallen into this kind of trap of like, I almost feel like a producer has sat him down and been like, look, Conjuring 1 was decent. So let's build a Marvel Cinematic Universe, but with your Conjuring universe. And I hate that so much because it's just dumb, and they're not to the par. Like, there are so many more interesting things. I mean, I know we just, like, it was a few podcasts ago, but in that first one, I find that, yeah, exactly. I agree.
Dan,
I agree.
So Dan's just said, how can a woman sitting in a house/apartment for 2 hours cost millions to produce? Yeah.
I just find that there were so many different avenues to take with this franchise that could have been very, you could have still had your when I say generic, I don't mean that as a bad comment, but you could still have generic horror in there of your jump scares and stuff. But I really would have liked it to delve into some more, concepts that maybe kind of test the audience as well, or like maybe explore the mythology of these horrors, the stories of them. Like, is it true? Is it false? And instead they're just like, nah, ghost, it's demon in the doll, demon in a doll. It's just like,
but what's extraordinary about Annabelle is that unlike sort of Conjuring and Conjuring 2, which explore, as you said, sort of real whatever instances of ghosts or poltergeists or whatever, and they obviously go their own way with it, but they try and cover that. With Annabelle, it's interesting because they start with the true story and then they go off on a completely different thing, presumably because there wasn't enough true story in order to fill an hour 40 of material. So they've loosely got the Annabelle doll and they've put it in this really weird scenario where it's set in, I think, 1969, and they've contextualized it in quite I don't know, I feel like it was slightly tasteless. They contextualized it with the Manson family murders, and obviously, I mean, Annabelle's not the only one that's guilty of this. There have been loads of movies that have taken advantage of the storyline of Sharon Tate and stuff. And I don't want to have a go at them, but it felt in this case. So it starts off. So it starts off with this couple moving into their California home in California in 1969. It's a suburban neighborhood. Everyone's friendly. They go to their church, and then I can't remember her name, but the wife is sort of, she says, she implores her husband to lock the door, which again contextualizes it slightly. It kind of sort of, this is the threshold. This is when America loses their innocence, all that stuff, which is a bit on the nose, but I was like, okay, fine. And then they have her watching the TV report of the Manson murders. That was the first red flag for me. I was like, okay, this will be interesting. And then it transpires that so for those who don't know, Manson family was like a cult. I mean, people have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I guess, but cult who killed Sharon Tate and a number of other people in California, and Charles Manson was sort of responsible for sort of
indoctrinating them, really.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so this film follows kind of loosely from that, where a satanic cult invades the home of the family next door and kills them, and then tries to enter this couple's house, and one of the daughters picks up the Annabelle doll and kills herself, and the blood works its way into the Annabelle doll and becomes one with it. I didn't like that at all.
No, it's so bad.
It's so bad, and they're clearly clutching at straws, the writers, or the writer, I should say, Gary Doberman, I think, who actually is, I mean, he carried on to work on the Conjuring franchise. I think he wrote The Nun. He wrote the next Annabelle stuff. But he also, I was trying to figure out where I knew his name from, and he was actually one of the co-writers of the first two It films.
Which surprises me a little bit. I think being a co-writer, I think someone else probably took the lead on that.
Yeah, I do wonder what stage, because I think it went through 2 stages where there was a script and then it was heavily rewritten and stuff like that. So I don't know which stage he was at. But this was I don't get offended by a lot of things. I tend to think, if people enjoy it, whatever. I've sort of run into this story. I remember going to a press screening of The House That Jack Built, the Lars von Trier serial killer movie.
Love that film.
A critic told me afterwards to go to hell because I was laughing so much. So it's one of those things where I'm not really easily offended by things. With this, it wasn't. I suppose it wasn't so much offense. I just found it very cringy. I found it very tasteless for this kind of comparison to be made, not least because it kind of gives credence to cults, if you know what I mean. It's like, okay, we've got the Manson family murders. They were a cult. They killed a few people. Okay, now we've got a satanic cult. And they're the real deal because they managed to transport someone's soul into that of Annabelle. And I think I don't think the writers intended for this to happen, but it comes across that they're giving credence to these cults.
Well, and also, like, as you say, like, you look at something like Child's Play, which obviously is a 10 times better film, just in all accounts. But you look at how that's handled, and it's a murderer / robber / amongst all other things, who has dabbled in voodoo magic, which, in his last, when he's about to die, he tries desperately to, immortalize his life, and it happens to work. And the first half of that film, you don't see a lot of Chucky. It's very much all implied, and then it switches it and says, no, okay, he is in the doll. Now let's play up on that. But it does it in a way where it's like, we know this is a bit of a silly concept. Let's have fun with it. This film takes itself so seriously, and it thinks the audience is there going, oh my God, whoa, where I think most people are just pissing themselves like, what am I watching?
What's funny as well is that nothing much happens in a lot of the film.
It's just boring.
And again, it's one of those things, I mean, we've talked about it before, where a lot of films I mean, we talked about it with Nightmare on Elm Street films. That this film just feels like really feels like a first draft. It feels like, okay, we're trying to write something here, okay, and then the next stage would be, okay, how can we make this bit scarier, this bit scarier, this bit scarier. They didn't have that stage. I don't think they just. And again, this kind of goes to what I was saying earlier about it being a rushed job, I think. And it kind of, okay, it kind of goes forward. So the couple have a baby. They like the baby. But eventually it's like, oh yeah, I think actually Annabelle's cursed. The doll is cursed, and then the guy gets rid of it in the bin, and there's things keep happening. It's like, oh no, we gotta move to Pasadena instead of here. So they move to Pasadena into a flat where one of the
flat though.
Nice flat, and they meet a bookshop manager, who's also into sort of vaguely into the occult, who sort of pops around every so often,
which is a trope I'm getting a bit. I know, like, films like this, and this is not just singling out The Conjuring, but there are a load of other films that do this, but I'm getting a bit sick and tired of it, because with The Exorcist, where it's like, let's bring in a priest and let's do this exorcism, I think the trope is just kind of wearing thin a bit, whereas we're at the tail end of this, we're losing our minds. What do? We got to bring in a priest, and then he comes in, and he or she always knows so much, like, oh, this is a so and so demon.
Yeah,
you can't, and you're just like, oh, fuck off. Like, I don't care. Like, at least with The Exorcist, it was like, okay, I've with the setup at the beginning of The Exorcist, it's like, oh, I think I know the demon.
Yeah,
we can try these exercise, like these practices. Whereas these films, and this is what I mean by it just feels so lazy, is that they just come in and go, priest enters, exposition.
Yeah.
Then they crack on with the job, and it's just so tiresome that I just sit there like, great, I can't wait. I don't know.
They bring in like a.
I honestly don't know. Like, I wouldn't be able to sit here and just be like, oh, this is what you do. But I'm pretty sure if they sat down and said, let's try and innovate this, like, even use that concept, but let's just do it different. But it's not just The Conjuring, it's other films as well, where it's there's a ghost or something. Bring in the priest. He or she knows exactly what it is.
Let's in the Ghostbusters. You know,
like, I'd prefer that. Would be hilarious. Yeah. Ghostbusters show up and just go and solve the issue. Like, that would be great. But
it was also interesting to me. The husband, he was a very thin character, I thought.
He might as well not been in it, I think.
Yeah, just kind of like pretty much going with the flow. I mean, they could have at least like made it interesting in that he, like, I mean, even though it's quite predictable, he could have been like, no, this isn't the case. You're going crazy, stuff like that. That would have been more interesting. But he just goes along with it. He's just like, oh yeah, sure, let's do this. And that, okay, adding to the boredom again, not even adding any conflict in the situation.
I will really quickly say as well, I think one of my biggest flaws with this film, and on a genuine level of just horror within this franchise, is even if this film was like, okay, we're going to make an Annabelle film, you know, yes, the doll looks considerably different, but I get that from a creative standpoint, even though I don't like that, but that's a personal thing. But I get a bit sick and tired where you're there going, it's a doll who's haunted. And they never play on that fact. It's always camera comes into the kitchen. There's the hob on the cooker, and it just clicks on. And it's like, why the fuck is the doll in this then? Like, you want scenes like in again, I'd hate to keep going back to it, but you want scenes in like Chucky where you just see the doll leave just off camera, and you're like, oh, was that but no, this film, she sits down everywhere with that stupid face and just goes like, oh yeah, no, don't worry, she's a conduit for the demon, but the demon can do it regardless of being in her. And
she's
if
just
anyone
everywhere,
but the one on the stairs, I want to talk about the scene on the stairs,
where
bit? She's looking down the stairs and it's very dark and you just see the outline of of the demon.
The demon, yeah, the sort of
And
black.
I really liked
Yeah.
that. The
Yeah.
smile do that a little bit, where you can only just make it out.
But I've
Yeah.
seen that before in Insidious, and considering
Yeah,
that it's
it's-
considering
No, I
it's the
don't
same
think
guy.
Yeah, but
But
I thought that was the only positive I found in the film. Really,
I have to admit, the only shot I actually okay. So there are just 3 shots that that are kind of varying levels. So I quite liked the shot in which it's the where the woman's in one room and the little girl's in another, and the little girl runs towards her and suddenly turns into a adult demon face woman. I quite liked that shot. And that just said the doll was in the trash can. Can't turn knobs in the kitchen there. No, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But there's also the shot which I didn't like, but it could have been done well, is when she goes down in the elevator to the sort of storage basement place.
Yeah.
And it's just one shot as the elevator just keeps on opening at the same level, keep close, open at the same level, close, open at the same level, close. And you could have had something really interesting there. You could have had the shot like moving a bit to the and then moving back, and then even that would have been more interesting than it's just literally a shot on her. Just and as the escalator keeps on, and I'm just like, you could have had something far more dramatic and actually scary in that
shot. Another example would be like The Grudge, when she's in the elevator and it does have one fixed shot, but it's you're looking at the staircase that's next to it, and then the ghost is there, and it keeps going and keeps going, that he's just every floor. But this is what I mean about, like, as I agree with you completely. I think they sat down, wrote it very quickly, and then went like, cool, this is passable.
Yeah, because you can
they
see.
Were right though. How much money did they make?
Yeah, they made a lot of money, but I think that's on the back of Conjuring.
I think, but we talked about this as well, though. Like, when it comes down to the money side, you know, happy that they made their money back genuinely, because that's what they're aiming to do. But I don't know. It's one of the reasons I really like A24 films, is that they won't make all the time millions and millions. Like, they don't smash the box office, but they make films that I think are way more memorable and really do delve into the story. Whereas these films are very much aimed at, we want sold out theaters, and they don't necessarily care about the reviews after, because they're like, well, we made bank, we made budget back, so now we have enough money to fund the next one. And it's like, and I don't know, it's that horrible thing. It's not just with this series, it's with a lot of other films. There are films where I'm like, if audiences just go, no, actually we'd like a change of this, but the sad reality is that you know, even if you're like, oh, you know what, I haven't seen this film, I want to go see it, it sadly they create a good buzz, is what I'm saying, which is a sad reality, because you just want the story and the creative aspects of it to just be on par of what you're paying for.
Yeah.
Can I just say, just so I'm not being confused, you've seen the second one, Creation?
I haven't, but no.
Jess, yeah?
Yeah.
Larry? Yeah. So, is the girl in the wheelchair? Is she in a wheelchair? She isn't she?
I think I'm getting too confused. Which one's the one with the cast out of The Haunting on Hill House that's on Netflix?
No, well, in Creation, it's like they're at
the farmhouse, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a old farmhouse, and a load of orphans with some nuns go there. Yeah, they get looked after there because there's no one living there. And I was just making sure, because I'm sure the kind of main actor, the young girl, is the kind of woman who kills herself at the beginning of this film.
I don't know.
She's the neighbor, or she's the daughter of the neighbor. So we'll probably revisit this once we watched it again, because maybe you haven't seen it.
I always get confused, because I know there are 2 sequels, and
one's in the past, one's in the distant past.
But I don't even know if this is how bad these films get when they just
Creation. I think Creation is a really good film, and I think even The Rotten's a lot higher, probably double that.
Which one's the one with the little this might not even be the same franchise, but which one's the one with the little girl and she like gets the doll and then like they're faking seances? Is that Annabelle?
No.
Am I thinking of something very different?
That might be the third one.
Yeah. No, but I think it is. I want to say it's the third one. If that is the case, I don't think I've seen the second one because I remember.
You might like the second one then. So you might.
I
Annabelle
will.
Comes Home has got the
Girl
what's her
from.
name? Yeah,
Well, I think there's
literally everything else under the sun.
But it's got the main actress, hasn't it? And then the younger actress who plays another character in The Haunting of Hill House. But yeah, I don't think I've seen the second one then, if that is creation.
Okay. So there is a link between these two, and I might explain a little bit.
Even if there's an explanation, I don't think it's going to change.
But this is an interesting thing that has come up as you were talking. Really, it's sort of because there's so much confusion as to how these films are connected.
Yes,
that confusion is such a testament to how sort of improvised this franchise feels. I mean, at least compared to well, at least what MCU was. I think they're improvising a bit at the moment with the MCU at the moment, but before they had a definite, interesting plan. Okay, we're going to introduce all these people, then we're going to gather them together, and then make their own films, and then it was actually like a revolution, almost a revolutionary Hollywood plan that carried off really well. With this, it's like, oh, let's have a go.
That's what I mean. That's what's heartbreaking is that I feel like a producer has sat down and said, we want to mimic what Marvel has done, have a series of films that all are interconnected, but they don't have a big plan. And with the announcement that came recently, which I'm just fuck off.
So Lawrence is referring to the news that The Conjuring 4 is currently in production.
I'm really pleased about that because I like them. So,
I just don't know what they can do.
It can only go up, right?
I love the face as well of the uncertainty.
The optimism for this.
Have I watched
Conjuring 4?
Conjuring 4?
No, have you got a trailer for Annabelle? Have you got something that
I can get one?
Yeah.
I also want to say about Annabelle, it does feel a bit like a student film, doesn't it?
Yes, it feels.
It feels like
made by professionals.
You know when we've watched films by people who we quite respect, like by people we know, and that there are occasions when they make a film and it's not very good, and it's like, okay, well, well done for that, but there are some decent ideas you can see between lines, but ultimately it didn't carry off well, and that's that's part of the process. This felt a lot like that to me. It felt like there was an idea here, there was an idea there, but it's just overall terrible. And even like, again, as I say, it was just bland, and the cinematography was really bland.
Yep.
And it kind of makes you realize how good a lot of horror movies are in terms of how they're shot and how they're edited.
She looked great. She looked great, to be honest.
Yeah, sure. But I think that's probably down to her being a very attractive and also having a good makeup artist, and it's just sort of.
I thought we were talking about the doll. I was like, what?
I was, to be honest.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
That's such an arsehole.
I wasn't.
I know, fair comments. I mean, I thought we were talking about the doll. I was like, where
look at this scary scene. That's giving half the film away.
I hated those scenes. I
didn't like that scene. Waiting for that scene. Oh, it went on and on and on. It's still going on.
You don't need to watch the film. It's just watch the trailer. There you go. Save yourself.
Go bang. Ow, that hurt.
Yeah.
Save yourself.
Better not play any more trailer, Jess.
It did feel like they were filling time, even with like an hour 40. They were just
you timed that so well.
Yeah, a lot of it felt like filler, which is strange for a film that's only an hour 40 or whatever.
I just don't understand why James Wan is a very talented director, and he is. I'm not the biggest fan of Insidious, but I do think that Insidious had the grounds to be like, okay, good starting point. I especially love the ending where they take spoilers, but where they take that picture and it just changes to the woman being there. So, you know, like, well, I won't give too much away of that if people haven't seen it. But there, you sit there and go, good, this is a good starting point. Now let's build up. But they did the same with Insidious, where they were like, oh my God, we're going to franchise this. So this takes place about 20 years before. This takes place in the future. This is a direct sequel. This is the story of... yes. The doll was exceptional. But no, I just find that with this, I just find that James Wan should really just do like, that's why I don't like the second one. And I wasn't there for the second one, but just very obviously there's a previous podcast where you can watch me rant for about an hour. But in summary, what I just didn't like was that that story to me is very infamous of like, was it real? Was it not? There's like, you know, evidence which you could look at and be like, oh, okay, it's compelling. And then other bits where it's like, okay, was it faked? And instead of going down that route to really explore those avenues of that, they just went, nah, don't worry, it's the Nun. It's the Nun. And it's like, but there was a better series that came out, which I think we discussed, which was great, which did explore that. And I would recommend highly that everyone go watch that because it's better. And I just think it's ridiculous how I know that they are obviously just going inspired by a true story or based on, but I think it loses a lot of integrity when you start shoving it down the faces of people going like, well, there's this demon and it's a nun, and don't worry though, her film comes later in the franchise, we're going to find out what created the nun. It's like, I don't fucking care. I just don't care. Like,
I did.
But this is the interesting thing is that, as you say, Lawrence, I don't give a shit either. But a lot of people seem to. And I don't understand what.
I think it's franchising. I think it's franchising, and I think a lot of it comes from. I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of it. I know a lot. I like in uni and especially after just like in general conversation with certain people, a lot of people go, oh, but James Wan, he started off the Saw franchise. And so, like, you know, and he's really, and it's like, yes, he did Saw, and Saw is admittedly the first
and
one.
Where did Saw end up?
It ended up in the toilet, and this is my problem. But like James Wan is very talented, and I just wish that he would stop going back to this very generic, like, oh well, we need a new Conjuring, and I wouldn't be surprised if Conjuring 4 they've gone to him and gone, hey, do you want to do another Conjuring? And it's like,
it makes you wonder.
The third Conjuring didn't, if I remember correctly, didn't do very well. Like a lot of people, a lot of hardcore fans were like,
I mean, and it wasn't Wan who directed it either. It was someone else. But you can, this is the interesting thing, and even though I don't like films that are made purely for the money, you can kind of understand the temptation, though, can't you? If you're a producer of a series that just sort of garners millions and millions of dollars, it must be tempting.
But that's what I feel, because you brought it up recently. That's what I feel Marvel is struggling with a little bit here, because I feel as though they had, like you said, they had their pun intended, but they had their end game. But afterwards, they all sat down and went, well, we need a new end game. Like, we need to build, but I feel like they're there like literally with darts with ideas
throwing so much at the
and
ball.
then it goes, I like this, we'll go there, how about you throw? And then it's like, throw another dart, and it just says something else like, oh, let's just do this for a series. And I feel as though The Conjuring would benefit from, I don't know, maybe having some fresh writers in there and just kind of maybe changing it up. I mean, or having it come to, like, because it's gone, I think it's too far to turn back now. But even with 4, having it accumulate to something that's something that you can at least look at and go, whoa, okay, maybe I do need to go rewatch these films. Like, I missed something. They've clearly looked back at their own work and have that end game. But I'm worried that it will just be another Ed and Lorraine Warren have been called in to look at this ghost that's in this house, and Lorraine will have a headache at some points. And Ed
so in
will
20 years'
be really
time,
supportive.
Right? 20 years' time, do you think we get it rebooted?
No, not at all. No. I wouldn't be surprised if someone does an offshoot of Annabelle, because Annabelle, the story behind that and the doll, but I think it won't be connected at all. But I don't think someone will go, let's remake Conjuring 1.
I also feel like I also feel like it's not if it were to be sort of revisited in any form, I reckon it would be a sequel or a prequel situation. Just because I think even though these films made loads of money, I feel like they haven't made enough in order to justify that. And I don't think, even though they've made that much money, I don't think they're so liked or loved, or maybe that's my own optimistic opinion. But it's kind of like, yeah. And you also can't predict directions these things go in. I actually think like almost like murder mysteries will supersede superhero movies in the next like 10 or 20 years, something like that. But you know, it could happen, Kev. It could happen. I don't want to see it happen.
If it does happen, I would love it if someone comes in and says like, let's change it up a bit, like let's explore different stuff. But I am actually interested. Jess, you said earlier that you actually didn't mind it, this film.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's not, you know, if I wanted to put on a horror film, I wouldn't go, oh, fancy watching Annabelle. Like, but I don't find it awful. There's some scenes that I really like in this. So, like when the priest tries to go back in the church, and she's in the car. I love that scene. And again, as you said, when the little girl runs towards a door and then she comes through a door and all of a sudden she's the adult version, but like demony. Love that bit. But again, the story is just a bit kind of like, it's like they've had a bunch of half ideas and tried to shove them together.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, in my head, because I've seen the others and I'm trying to think of how they actually all go together, and I still can't quite wrap my head around it. So I'm hoping when we watch the others, I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I thought for a second, I thought you meant the film The Others, which is a much better film, which is much better than any of the other ones that Conjuring.
That is the Nicole Kidman, isn't it?
Yeah. Nicole Kidman and Christopher Eccleston, maybe. Yeah, I think so. He plays the husband.
So a really old one.
2001, so not that old. But yeah.
I say really old. I remember being traumatized by it because I was traumatized by it as well. Some of it whilst
same.
Well, and what a great twist as well. Just what a great twist. Like, we love a twist.
We do love a twist. Love a twist. So we rate this and then move on, because we're 45 minutes in on Annabelle. So I'm going to give it a 4.
Oh, I was actually surprised by that.
I'm surprised by that. Yeah,
it's okay. There's a couple of bits I like, but again, when I revisited it, I couldn't really remember anything that had gone on in it, other than maybe scary bits, and even the bit on the stairs that I really liked. I don't even remember seeing that before, making me think, actually, had I ever seen the film before? But I know there are parts that I had. I'll go back to it at some point again. I'd like to really get my head around that link between the first and the second, and there is one. Just need to clarify it a bit, but when we've watched the second one, maybe I'll watch it again. A family favourite. So I'll give it a 4. What do you reckon, Larry?
What did I give Conjuring again? Shit.
Conjuring 1, I think.
Not a lot.
I gave it
a 6, didn't you? Conjuring 1, you gave 6.
Conjuring 1 is 6. Conjuring 2 is nil point. Annabelle, I'd have to say 2. Okay. I think that there are shots in it that are all right, the ones that we've mentioned, but all in all, if someone sits down to me and says, "Do you want to watch Annabelle?" I know how I'd react. I'd just be like
screaming.
I just be like, there are better films that we could watch and serve our time. Like, why are we watching this? I'd even settle for Conjuring. I'd be like, let's put Conjuring on. Fuck's sake.
I'm trying to think what kind of person you'd be. You recommend Annabelle? No offense to any of our listeners who are fans of this.
Look, if you like it, if you like the franchise as well, there's nothing against you. If someone's going to turn to me and go like, my God, 10 out of 10 franchise, it's amazing. The story, I'm just going to go, fuck off. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Amazing story.
Coming this summer, an amazing story.
Annabelle. Ewan.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say 2. I was initially gonna give it 3, but considering how annoyed I got through this podcast, I feel like it only got us 2. I admittedly did like that shot of the girl turning into the woman demon thing. I think that was the highlight, and it was about 5-6 seconds of a 1 hour 40 movie. So I think on that reflection, and also as I've said before, it is a sin to make a boring horror film.
If I could, I think
2 is adequate.
I was just gonna say a good analogy would be it's like a totaled car that you see and it's completely fucked, but then someone goes, the bonnet survived, and you go, but it's still a totaled car.
I think I'd rather watch a car being totaled away.
Yes? What are you thinking?
I want to say, as a standalone, I'd probably just give it a 4. But with the others and knowing the kind of backstory and things, then I would give it a 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's nice. So we're looking at probably a 3.
That's actually a good point you raised, Jess, because it's like, imagine if this was a standalone film.
Worth
that would just make things so much worse.
Yeah. Yes. God. Yes, it would.
Did anyone watch the Hot Pick?
No, I didn't.
Can you remind me of the title?
Bloody hell!
Just no, because I can't remember if this is the one I've watched, but I don't want to. Yeah, I don't know if it's the one. Oh, that is the title. I thought you just were saying that to me. I was like, oh, geez.
I really enjoyed that moment, though.
Yeah,
that was a lovely moment.
I like that.
Just clip it. Just see my face. Realize like. No, I don't. I don't know. Don't know.
Anyway, it's everyone's favourite Dan's Hot Pick. Right, here we go. Dan's Hot Pick. Bloody hell. A man with a mysterious past flees the country, his country, I think it's the US, to escape his own personal hell, only to arrive in Finland, where it's much, much worse. So I watched this last night after a few drinks, and I really enjoyed it. So basically, this guy, what's it called when he's got voices in his head, but he can actually see himself and talk to himself?
Schizophrenia?
Yeah.
So he's kind of got that, and he's involved in he goes to a bank. I think it's a bank, and there's a robbery there, and he ends up shooting everyone, but to save the day, and ends up going to prison himself. When he comes out of prison, everyone knows who he is. Some people were celebrating the fact that he's a hero, others not so much. But anyway, he can't go anywhere. So he decides to go to Finland. Once in Finland, he gets kind of kidnapped by some dodgy foreigners and wakes up.
Not in Finland, though, I assume.
In Finland. Okay. So he wakes up there and part of his leg's missing. And then it's the story about how he escapes from all this and his schizophrenia and how he gets out of it and the situation he's in. It's amazing. It's very, very funny. It's very well acted. there are some subtitles in parts and things because it obviously is in Finland for the majority of the film, but it's just so much fun. So it seems like Dan's film seems like no other than Kev likes good movies.
It does look quite good though from the trailer.
It was amazing. So I watched that on Shudder, but I had to use the US VPN. So I logged in through that, and it was on there. It's not in England at the moment, in Britain at the moment. And I had a lot of fun. Actually, I might buy it. I'd like to own that. I think it.
I'm still trying to buy Dan's last hot pick, Terrifiers.
Yeah,
I love that film, and
Terrified.
Isn't the sequel? Hasn't the sequel come out?
No, that's Terrifier.
Terrifier 2 gets delivered tomorrow to me. Tomorrow I get that, and I'll be talking about it next week because it's 2.5 hours.
I actually am really excited to see that because from actual reviews, I've seen that it's got some really good good comments. But what I don't like, and I've talked about this, it's not just with Terrifier, this with any, is when it's like Terrifier 2 has shocked the nation because people are vomiting in the cinemas. And I'm
classic.
You said this about every film. I'm just like, but the actual reviews, the ones that are like, just about it and the story and the acting and stuff, have given it praise reviews like, it's a really good independently made film.
I'm so proud of this. There's a bit of dust on it there, but I've had that quite a while because I love the first movie. It was amazing. I know some of you watched it. Jess, I made you watch it, didn't I?
Yeah.
Did you watch Terror? So I really like it. So I'll get it tomorrow. That could be a hot pick, Dan. That's one you should hot pick that. I'm going to watch it this week. But Terrified, certainly, I'd like to own that at some point. So even Dan loves Terrified. So it's a proper horror film.
I think I'm going to be sick that week. Sorry. Get COVID again. Sorry.
Well, Terrified 2. So yes.
I missed that. Sorry.
Jess is going to be sick for Terrified.
Terrified.
Right. Nice. That was good.
Yeah, I need a hot pick for next. So it won't be next week, but the next episode, Dan, if you can ever think about it. Some other foreign-y film. Well, there was a bit of foreign in bloody hell, but I would highly recommend it. I would say I'd give that an 8 on entertainment value. I don't know on the rewatch value what it'd be, but loads of fun watching that last night, especially after a few beers. Couldn't stop watching it. So brilliant. Thanks for that, Dan. Show.
What did you hear?
Well. Sorry for people who are listening. Basically, in my building, the washing machines are really, really loud, and they sort of vibrate across the whole building. So when one person is washing their clothes, it kind of makes the building shake. So that's what I was listening to. So someone else is doing their washing, I think.
That's fair.
Anyway, so let's move on to what we watched this week.
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
Oh, that's you. I love Now I Hear It all the time.
What's that?
The what have you been watching ever since found out this you're recording? I love it.
Yeah, I made that. Yeah, I don't know what came over me, but I've kept it. I don't know if I like it or not still, but I've kept it. So let's go on to the first one I watched. Yeah, so Dan's next week is Beelzebub. Is that how you say it?
Beelzebub.
Well, yeah.
2017. So I think I've seen it.
Beelzebub?
Yeah, well, it's clearly because obviously the devil is
Beelzebub.
But Beelzebub, yeah. But there's also Behemoth as well. So maybe they've combined the two, or it's a translation. It could be another foreign movie. Kev.
Could be a foreign one. Probably, I think it is actually. I'll talk about X first. In 1979, a group of young filmmakers set out to make an adult film in rural Texas, but when their reclusive elderly hosts catch them in the act, the cast find themselves fighting for their lives. I think that says it all, really.
Mm.
And that's pretty much what the film is. It's very, very good, well acted. There's a bit too much nudity for my liking.
In a film about a porn film.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But it was entertaining.
Yes, A24.
The obviously the people that own the house, the old lady, she still wants it. And they look extremely old. And he can't do it anymore because he thinks he's going to die because of his heart. And I'm not sure why he starts killing them all. I couldn't really work that out. What was the reason?
Spoilers? I mean,
yeah,
Pearl,
I think
Pearl,
we can do.
Pearl the prequel.
I haven't seen Pearl yet, so that's going to tell me more, is it?
Well, I mean, even if you just look at the end credits, I mean, it does kind of give you a lot away.
But I mean, what I find interesting about this is that, I mean, fair enough, X has been rated well and Pearl has been rated very well as well when it came out it came out in Venice and it got 5-star reviews in some places. But I am slightly worried that A24 is going in a slightly more. I keep in mind I haven't seen X or Pearl, so this is just. But I'm slightly worried that it's going in a slightly franchisey direction.
Do you know what I thought?
I think Ty West. I think Ty West. That's probably just down to Ty West. I think he had 3 ideas that he's like, let me. If it's okay, like, you know, whether or not they wanted to bank on the first one, because I know he filmed Pearl after X, so they must have granted him it. But I hope not. For this, I could kind of go like, all right, but
there's another one coming now, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a third one, which I assume it's just going to be a trilogy.
I only know because I listened to him in a podcast, and he was talking about the second one. He said he recorded straight away, literally.
Yeah. Well, because it's X, Pearl, and then XXX, I think.
So,
I think that's the 3.
Triple.
Well, it's because it's.
So it'd been better if he'd been 2X.
Well, that's what they use.
But I assume that's what they use because of porn.
Because that's what they use when you go XXX.
Why is the first one called X?
Because it's X-rated, I think.
X-rated. Then
and
Pearl is the name of the old lady.
And the third one's triple rated.
Like the third one's like porn.
Yeah.
Like an analogy for porn. Like that's what you use.
Yeah.
Like whenever you see 3 X's and it's on like a site, it's like
one's soft porn, one's hard porn. So
Lawrence and I can give you a detailed analysis of what.
Right, starting with the basics.
No, I was just trying to, X-rated one, and then the other ones.
I think it's more colloquial.
3X's.
I think 3X's is just like, because I think X-rated was a kind of not well. I think it could have pornographic scenes in there, but as you say, Kev, I think. Like genuine movies could be rated.
Like Emmanuel kind of porn.
Yeah, like Clockwork Orange was rated X when it came out and stuff like that, and that's obviously not a porn film. But I think XXX is a kind of
more towards. I just think it's more towards because obviously this as the first one is, it's centered around that they want to film a pornographic film and they want to film it on a kind of out of the way place. So I think the third one, if it is called XXX, is just honing in on that again, but in a different way.
So is the film Love XXX or X?
I think that's it. I think it's X. It's an interesting. X doesn't really exist anymore, is there? It's either. Oh, maybe in America it does.
I think X exists in America, but it's more towards certain type of content. That's either.
But I still feel like Love would be like NC-17 in America. It's definitely 18.
Yeah. Well, I think as well. This film is the first film is titled X because when it's set, it's still not set present day. It's still set in. I think it's the 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
And back then, if a film was rated X, it was very much like, in the theater, you're going to go see an X-rated film, and it was very much more towards pornographic imagery, whereas films adult content.
Friday the 13th would have been X-rated, probably.
No, that would have been because now it's NC-17. Yeah, it would have.
Yeah, or NC-17. Yeah, but also like the Evil Dead, the original cut of the Evil Dead, I think was an X.
Yeah, Cannibal Holocaust was an X.
Oh yeah, Cannibal Holocaust. Sorry, I'm just remembering the experience of watching Cannibal Holocaust and vowing never to watch it again.
It's one film, isn't it?
a film you watch once and you don't need to ever go back.
Oh, I
to,
watched it
really.
a couple of times. There was a different cut of it, and that was
Yeah, I think I'll be
boring.
all right watching the different because there's one cut where they kill all the animals, and that's
Yeah,
the
I think that's
cut
the
I
one I
watched,
watched.
and the other
Yeah.
cut is
Yeah.
the one where they don't kill them, and I
Not
was
so
like,
bad.
No.
don't really
Not
want
so
to watch this again.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
no, it's not
X I
nice.
would give a 7.2. It was okay, not amazing, but
I think I rated it on this podcast. It was a
You
while
did.
ago. It's all right.
Yeah, so it was okay. So another one I watched was Demons. Have you seen that one? A group of random people is invited to a screening of a mysterious movie, only to find themselves trapped in the theatre with ravenous demons.
It's like Odeon's screen on scene.
So it is. It's a film. It's a film within a film. You're watching a film, and it's great. And I own this film. I think it's Arrow. I think maybe
Oh,
I've got it
sort
off
of
Arrow.
rough celluloid, quite like that.
Yes. So there's a lot of demons and monsters and gore and stuff like that. And without giving too much away, it's just a bloodfest, really, in a cinema. And it's a lot
I think
of fun.
I've seen this film.
Yeah,
a while ago.
I would have thought you would have done. I have.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the second one, but I do own it, and I will get around and watching it soon. It's one of them. It's quite difficult when you've got 3 kids. It's kind of difficult to watch.
Is it an old movie or a film that's
Yeah,
made?
I would say
right,
70s. I would say 70s. I think.
I thought it might have been like what like Tarantino did with Death.
Yeah.
Note,
Yeah.
made it look old,
No, it's definitely
but,
got that grindhouse like
Mm.
look to it.
Yeah,
some of them-
so the shot of the helicopter collapsing.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Some of it, like, I don't get. I think it was meant to be like 3 mini movies or something, like an anthology or something. And they just put it all into this one film.
Trailers back then really do show you the whole film, don't they?
Yeah, but which it is.
And they do
Demons.
nowadays.
I love that. I'd give that an 8. That's so much fun. Sit there and
There's a
watch it.
second
It
one.
is. Yes,
Yeah.
I've got it. So maybe we watch it together one day, Jess. The last one I watched, right, was a remake of the 1982 slasher film, Slumber Party Massacre. So that's about some sorority girls attacked by a maniac killer with a large electric drill. So I own the first
I
one.
wonder what the subtext
original.
behind that is.
I'll
Yeah,
be
there's
back
a
in
lot
2,
of-
just carry on.
So it was a remake, and it was a really good remake. Actually, it wasn't shot for shot or anything like that. It was different. It was more up to date, as you can see. So yeah, I think, is it a remake? I think maybe that.
When was it
kind of-
made?
Oh
This
god,
one?
this is like in the last couple of years. This
Right,
one,
yeah.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last year, and I've had it for a while. Came out, and I think I got it quite cheap. But I can't give too many spoilers away because it is a totally different film to the original. A lot different. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Some drunk people in it, drunk girls, bloke with a massive drill, and I don't even know because I've got one of those. I've got a drill like that myself with a big old drill bit on it, and I don't know how he does what he does with it because just they don't react like that. These drills.
Right.
There he is. So yeah, I had loads of fun with that. I've watched a fair bit this week, and I'd give that probably 6 or a 7. Yeah, it's just fun. I think you might like that, Jess.
It's a big drill.
It's good. It is a big drill, but I don't think you can do what he's doing with it.
What size is your drill?
Yeah. It feels like almost like
25 mil. Like
yeah. I mean, it looks very sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but instead of a chainsaw, it's an equivalent drill.
Yeah, but there are originally. I think there was 3 of these movies, maybe 2. I definitely remember the second one where he's got a guitar, and it's kind of like a musical one, and his guitar's got a drill on the end of it, so he's like pumping his drill through them, and then the drill actually comes out in the remake. Well, not the drill, the guitar actually comes out in the remake, just the guitar on its own, though.
Yeah,
it's quite funny but
when he
if you get a
drills
chance
people
to-
with the guitar, does he do
Yeah.
the riff? Like
Yeah. Like Eddie Munster.
Yeah.
Just ripping.
So that's all I've watched this week. Well, it was say the last 2 weeks. I don't know if I mentioned *Malignant* before. I can't remember. Anyway, modern classic again.
Whoa.
Did I mention it the other week? Probably not.
I believe you mentioned it, but I think you actually said you'd save it for next week, and then obviously we cancelled.
For another time, yeah. And I think I've bought Old as well, so I've got that in 4K now. So
4K? What's wrong with you, Gav?
Well, for episode 100, I thought we'd make it.
No,
you spent so much money on such a shit film.
It wasn't. It's 4K over my, internet on iTunes. So I didn't buy the actual.
I will agree though. If you're going to buy a film, buy it in 4K. Like if you have the capability to do it.
But it looks nice,
but not old. Like that's where my heart really.
You know when you like, I sometimes scroll through like the 4K Blu-rays on like Amazon and whatever, and most of them are at 25 quid.
Yeah,
I'm just like, I can't afford this. This is ridiculous.
Occasionally you get one cheap. I bought The Predator for about £3 in 4K, and you can see why.
It's because no one watched it.
No, exactly.
Is it ironic? Is it ironic? I did the same thing. I did the same thing, and I'll put my hands up and say, I don't know why. I think I just saw it and it was so cheap that your brain just goes,
4K.
4K. But I will agree,
it looks all right though, but it's a terrible film.
I think mine's a steelbook as well.
Of course it is. Of course it's a steelbook.
The Predator steelbook. Oh my god.
Oh dear.
Good artwork on the front.
What have you been watching?
I know there's one that you're going to bring up that I can't wait. I'll just probably conjoin with you on it.
I can't. I don't know which one you're
Has
talking
anyone
about.
seen Halloween yet?
No, actually,
No.
I haven't seen Halloween Ends. Apparently, it's not very good.
I've heard the end. I've heard the ending to that is very divisive. Apparently, like it's.
Yeah, apparently the ending isn't very good.
I want to call it though, if I can, and I have not looked anything. It's me guessing because me and Ria were watching. I can't remember what we were watching on the TV, and a trailer came up for it. And I said to Ria, I've made her this bet, the exact same bet as well. I said, I think that because I heard that the ending was really divisive, and I think they're going to pull a Halloween 4 where one of the kids becomes the new, because there's like a shot where this kid like is arguing with somebody, going like, "But we have to." He says something in the trailer, and I said to Ria, I was like, "We should watch this out of spite."
I mean, I kind of would because I think there's been interviews with the writers where they've been like, yeah, even though it's called Halloween's Ends, we're not saying this is the end. And it's just
well, then it's clearly gonna be then.
That makes sense. That theory probably holds up. But no, I didn't see Halloween Ends. But I did see like the first trip I made after quarantining myself was the cinema to see The Banshees of Inisherin, which is the new film by Martin McDonagh, who did In Bruges and Three Billboards Outside of Missouri, as well as Seven Psychopaths is his fourth film. And I have to say, I thought this was an incredible film. I thought it was, and maybe his best film since In Bruges, definitely. It might even be slightly better than In Bruges. I'll have to watch Banshees of Inisherin a few more times to really make that judgment. But it's a film set on a fictional island on the west coast of Ireland, and stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. They're on this really sort of rural, empty island where it's a really small community. And these two characters are ostensibly friends, but then Colin Farrell's character goes to Brendan Gleeson's house, and Brendan Gleeson ignores him. And they go to the pub afterwards and he ignores them again. And Brendan Gleeson's character said, "Oh, I don't want to be friends with you anymore." And then just leaves it at that. So the whole film is kind of about this sudden breakup of a friendship, and Colin Farrell is trying to figure out why this friendship has broken. I thought it was a beautiful film, and kind of follows that thing where it's like it captures especially male relationships very well, because I think there's a lot of it's funny that you see lots of things about I don't know, you suddenly see these sorts of stereotypes that that apparently women are really passive aggressive and stuff like that. But I think men are just as bad at this as well. It can be just sort of like, it's kind of like a long period of ghosting, this film. And it gets to a point where Brendan Gleeson's character is like, right, if you don't stop bothering me, I'm going to cut my finger off and just throw it on your door. So stop bothering me, or this will happen. And then Colin Farrell's character is so sort of like messed up about this, and he's so sort of intellectually insecure and just insecure in general that he keeps on wanting to like gain this friendship back. And because this is like an empty island, he's like had no other friends to really like connect with. And I think it deals with mental health really well as well. It's set in 1923, so everyone is like, they don't call it depression, they call it despair, and it's like it's sort of that kind of thing. And I think it's it's also quite a touching film, very weird, very dark, classic sort of McDonough situation. It's also quite surreal in some ways, because it's like, for me, when I came out of the cinema, I was like, okay, what was that film about? In my head, I was just like going through it, and I just thought, oh, it's almost like this island is like purgatory in some ways, and it's like they almost can't make themselves get off of the island, and so it's almost like they're trapped there. And it's just and yeah, I thought it was a very beautiful film, and very funny as well, of course, and very dark and existential. So I thought that was a very good film. I also, this week I got into, or last week, this week, or one of the weeks, I sort of watched Park Chan-wook's latest film, Decision to.
I want to watch that.
Yeah.
Is it not as good as his last ones?
A lot of people love this film, so I don't want to, I don't want to negate whatever they're doing. But it's interesting as well, because I sort of try to because I haven't watched many Park Chan-wook films, so I sort of try to familiarize myself by watching The Handmaiden and I think Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. I watched those two.
Do you see? Is Park Chan-wook? I hope I'm not getting confused with this. Park Chan-wook did Old Boy, right?
Yeah, he did Old Boy.
Yeah, I feel like fantastic.
I need to rewatch, because I last watched it when I was a teenager. Interesting thing with Chan-wook, I understand he's clearly a genius. He's clearly, like, especially visually, he's such an amazing visual director. However, I suppose I'm not as into him as a lot of other people are, mainly because I'm not really a big fan of how he tells stories. I think a lot of his stories are told at a very accelerated pace, and you have to try and catch up with him, and it's sometimes difficult for me to sort of keep up with his speed, I guess, and that's part of the reason why Handmaiden was good, but I found that with Sympathy for Lady Vengeance as well.
Did you watch the extended version of Handmaiden? Because I would. No, it's long. It is long, but it's similar to, like, I don't want to compare it to something that's, in my opinion, considerably better, but like it's like Lord of the Rings, where you have parts missing where I think do serve the plot. It's longer, and you have to really sit down and just get in the mood for it. But I think it does flesh it out a lot more than what the cut down version does.
Yeah. But Decision to Leave, it was quite an interesting one, because it's not typical Park Chan-wook. It's not as bloody, not as sexy, or not as sexual. It's a very simple story, actually. It's sort of like a detective investigating a murder in Busan in South Korea, and the main suspect is a woman who's the murdered person's wife, and the detective gradually throughout the film falls in love with the suspect, and it's about their sort of awkward romance, I guess. It's sort of part neo-noir, part romantic melodrama, shot fucking beautifully, obviously. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing with Chan-wook's films, is that I almost think they're films for cinematographers, if you know what I mean. They're like,
they're lovely to watch. They're
exactly
lovely.
If you want to like do a class on cinematography, I think Chan-wook is a great avenue to go down. However, I think they get carried away with the style more than the substance. It's weird me saying that, because I like a lot of films where people accuse them of being style over substance. But with this, it felt like they just wanted to be clever with the camera angles and the editing, and the way they sort of structure the the plot and the story and stuff like that. And I mean, clearly Park Chan-wook is like hates cliche in any form, so he tries to avoid it as possible. But sometimes I admire that, but I sometimes like the occasional cliche because it connects you with the story. However, I just didn't connect with the story as much as a lot of other people did. I think it's superbly acted by the two leads. I think it's Tang Wei and Hail Sun. I'm sorry if I get that wrong. I thought it was almost like a simple story, but quite complexly told, which I think I kind of removes me from the sort of romantic action of it. A lot of people, I read one article that called this like the most erotic thriller of the year, and I was watching it, and I was like, "What are they talking about?" I mean, this might do it for a lot of people, because I suppose in some ways it's quite, because it's not like sexual really; it's more sort of intimate and about like staring across and having a vibe, and it directs those quite well. But I didn't really feel connected to this story. A lot of people did, which is fair, and I watched it on a laptop. I'd probably recommend people watching it at the cinema. So yeah, it was fine. Also, I've been replaying the Uncharted series.
Fantastic.
I completed the first one, and I'm now on the second one. I've almost completed the second one actually, but it's quite an interesting the difference between the first and second one, because the second one is marginally better than the first one. I think the first one is a great game and the gameplay is amazing, but there's very little story actually.
It's more about moments, isn't it? Like
exactly,
playing through big scale moments, whereas the second one kind of went, we can have the big scale moments, but add more story in.
Exactly, and more like character as well. And you get, I mean, there are a couple of criticisms which I mainly think is because like a certain amount of time has passed. Like the character of Chloe, even though she's great, the way she's introduced is sort of like, look how sexy she is. She's such a sexy woman, and she can batter you around the head, and you know that sort of thing. But I from what I know, I haven't played the Lost Legacy, which is the sort of spin-off. But they develop a character. They certainly develop a character in the third one, and to a certain extent in the second one. That'll be a minor critique, but it's a great game, and it's one of those things where it continuously makes you frustrated, but you wanna complete it. So you want to see what happens after every level. That's why you end up looking at the time, and about 3 hours have passed.
I think I'm on the third one. I think I started the third one.
But also that also sort of brings me on a few weeks ago. I decided to watch the movie of Uncharted. It was an interesting one because I deliberately put it on because I think I was feeling depressed that evening or whatever. So I thought I need a shit movie. I just need a shit movie to watch. And Uncharted was just there. So I thought, okay, I'll stick on Uncharted. I have to say, it's not a good film, but it's not as bad as I was expecting it to be.
I hate it.
I imagined you would. Obviously, Tom Holland is woefully miscast, but weirdly he is the best thing about the film, which is a strange dynamic.
He's a great actor. I just think that they did the typical production thing where they said, we want to make loads of these films, so we'll cast young. And Nathan Fillion, yeah, I think it's Fillion, yeah. Fillion, he was born to play Nathan, and I just don't know why they didn't make a one-off, just great. There's a short, I think I've said this again on this podcast, there is a great short film that you can watch on YouTube right now. Just type in Nathan Fillion, Uncharted, and it's fantastic, and it's about 20 minutes, but it really captures the game. So if you haven't seen that, Ewan, just whack that up.
I think I will.
And whack it on. You'll come back next podcast and be like, yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong.
Yeah, but it was an interesting watch because there were times when I thought, oh yeah, he did that sort of Nathan Drake thing quite well. And there are other times when it's just Tom Holland. I hated some of the Easter eggs in that film. Like when Tom Holland opens a suitcase and there's the Naughty Dog logo there. I was just like, don't really like that. They're also, it seems like they've just got parts of the third game,
Mhm.
stuck those on, and then just made their own plot, which is a bit but I wasn't. It was interesting. I wasn't bored through it. The jokes were funny, which I thought was good. Because there's always a risk with these things, like, oh, let's try to be funny, and then they're not. But I thought the jokes from this were quite good, which is kind of vital. It's weird that this sort of like I do like about the games that Nathan Drake and all the characters are kind of, if not early 30s, then quite late 20s. I quite like that aspect of it, because it's kind of like almost childish whilst being mature at the same time. Whereas with this, the movie, they're just sort of like, yeah, but we need it's almost like a business strategy in some ways. It's like you have to have characters that are in their 20s, otherwise no one will go to the cinema. And I think they've done similar, and similar to what you said, Lawrence, they want to make loads of movies, so they want to build up to that. But I feel like you could still do that with someone who's past 29. I think and also Holland is kind of Holland not only is in his 20s, but he looks like a baby. So I there's no rough stuff there. Whereas I think Nathan Drake in the games is sort of, I don't know, he's a bit rougher, and you can see he uses humor as a defense mechanism, and that's kind of his kind of character, and that's really enjoyable.
It's also, I mean, whenever I watch when I watched that film, all I saw was Peter Parker, because he's so, like, I'm not saying that he can't play other roles, but because he can. But when you're trying to cast someone who is admittedly just done a huge film that has ended the Spider-Man trilogy, and you're so well known to, this is Peter Parker, when you shove him in another role where it's, oh, we're going to have you play a younger version of Nathan who is very witty and all that, it's like, I would have preferred if Tom Holland was in this film, but was in flashbacks as a younger version.
that would have worked.
And it was a shame, because like with Mark Wahlberg, I'm just like, you're not fucking Sully.
Yeah,
just go away. Like Mark Wahlberg again, good actor, but just not Sully.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, the history of this film is quite interesting in that I think it was in development since like 2009 or something ridiculous like that, and I think Mark Wahlberg was initially going to be Nathan Drake, which would have been interesting. I don't think he has that enough charisma to be Nathan Drake, but it would have been interesting. But I find it quite, again, to overuse this word, quite interesting to see that after over 10 years of development, this is the best plot that they could come up with, which is very. I mean, I'm being harsh. I was entertained. The action scenes I thought were choreographed quite well. The fight scenes in particular I thought were choreographed quite well. And that's why it's part of the entertainment. It's why I'd give it like 3 stars or 6 boners, because it kind of entertained me. But it's a weirdly bad plot. I don't know, and you don't get the sort of the effort. I mean, I know this is like comparing movies to games, which is quite a difficult thing to do, because in the games you make a lot, you do a lot in order to get somewhere significant, whereas with this it's like they just do a load of shit and then they get there, sort of thing. But it was fine. I probably won't watch it again. There's no real need to watch it again, but it's all right. Also, just to finish up, I've been watching series 13 of Doctor Who just to prepare for tonight's regeneration episode.
We're going back to David Tennant.
Yeah, great.
What?
I love David Tennant.
David Tennant is for 3 specials, with Catherine Tate returning as well, and then it goes into because I think Russell T Davies, if I'm correct, he, I think, wants to kind of course correct everything, because a lot of people admittedly have been very upset with this. I don't really care about the whole, I've seen people go, Doctor Who's not a woman. It's like, I don't care about that. What I care about is just the stories, and I think the stories have been so shit. And the production value's been terrible, and I think Russell T Davies is just trying to reintroduce and get people back to go, let's course correct, which I understand. And David Tennant's going to smash it. He always does.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason Tennant's coming back is because it's the 60th anniversary next year, and then traditionally that when it's an anniversary episode, the old Doctors come back and sort of reunite.
Doctor Who next? Do we know?
Ncuti Gatwa, who
Sex
was
Education.
yes, Eric in Sex Education, who's a very good actor, and
Sushi.
Ncuti. It's a weird. It's a. I think it's Nigerian. It's a Nigerian name.
I can't wait to see what he does. I can't wait to see what he does though. Like, and he seems so happy and passionate about it that I'm just like, yeah you're gonna smash
I think it's
it.
going to be wonderful. But it's interesting with series.
I haven't watched this in Tom Baker, so
Yeah, but it's interesting with series 13 is that a lot of the stories aren't very good. Although I did feel like Village of the Angels was very good. Basically, they're put into a village where the Weeping Angels are.
But that's what pisses me off. Like when I saw the first Blink episode, I was like, this is a great one-off episode. Now with Matt Smith, now bear in mind, Rhea's like the biggest Doctor Who fan I've ever met. Like she knows all the episodes off by heart. And we had this discussion and she was very much saying like, oh, Matt Smith, where they revisited the Angels, did an all right job. But there's things I don't like about it. But the fact how they're just consistently going back, like we have no one who can fucking make up a good monster or good ally and a good story. Let's just, what are we, David Blink? Yeah, fuck it. You never saw the Angels move. Well, now we've got CGI, baby. And it's just like, stop.
It is funny as well, because I do think the Weeping Angels were created for a budget that wasn't but it worked for a low budget, and they made it work very well with like camera and editing and stuff like that, and made it work. But now they've got a very much increased budget. It kind of doesn't work with that budget. No. But I did like the episode. I thought it was very intense and very enjoyable. I quite like the characters they built, because in series 13 it was Flux, so it was one story over 6 episodes. I didn't think it concluded very well. It was a very sort of horror movie vibe, actually. It had sort of Hellraiser-y. What are the villains called? The
Cenobites.
Cenobites, very similar to the Cenobites, the villains in this, which is an interesting move. But it was kind of Moffat level confusion and complications, which was annoying. However, I did enjoy. There's like a will they won't they between the Doctor and Yaz, who's one of the companions, and I actually think those scenes between them are written very well. It's just a bit sort of muddled in that thing, but I'm looking forward to tonight's episode because I'm still entertained by Doctor Who. I put it off for ages because Flux kind of annoyed me for a while, but then Village of the Angels was quite a good episode, and then it went down a bit, went up a bit. It's classic sort of later Doctor Who situation where that's a great episode. Oh, that one was pretty shit. Good shit. It's that kind of graph. Especially with Chris Chibnall. Chris Chibnall, I think, has been the worst writer so far on the new Doctor Who's. Which is why I'm glad they're bringing Russell T Davies back. But it's quite interesting, Chris Chibnall, because I think the reason why the Yaz and Doctor scenes work so well is because they're so human and intimate and interesting, and I think that's where Chris Chibnall does well. Whereas with all the sci-fi stuff, I think he doesn't do that well. Whereas with Russell T Davies coming back, which I'm really excited for, he managed. Russell T Davies. Let's keep in mind, he's a genius television writer, and it's hard to compare anyone to him, but Davies is like, just he manages to juggle all those things and still make it into a wonderful story, often by prioritizing the characters. Obviously there are some duds in the Tennant and Eccleston episodes. They're still entertaining, but it's sort of but it was always the case where back in the day, I'll finish on this, don't worry, back in the day, the Doctor Who finales were just incredible, and I don't think I'm being nostalgic about that.
No, they were great. We are rewatching them, just like certain episodes here and there, and I forget how good they are. Like, just genuinely, like, through character, story.
They were events. Like even like non-sci-fi fans sat to watch what happened in the final episodes, and it was always like the penultimate episode, and it's like to be continued. It's like, oh, I don't know, I can wait a week for the next especially like after season 2 was when they started it, and then it just got better. Especially with David Tennant's last episode, which is I would say one of the best hours of British telly ever written, and I honestly don't think I'm being I'm not exaggerating there. I think it's genuinely great TV, and what a last episode to finish on. And it hasn't got better since then. I thought some of the Moffat episodes are quite good, but And Chris Chibnall, he got better, but still, it's sort of because he started trying to be all kiddie at the start, and they thought, okay, people aren't liking that, and he gradually got better. Fox was all right, but it's sort of all right there, and that's why I think Jodie Whittaker has got an unfair deal, because I think Jodie Whittaker is a good actor, and I kind of like how she performs as the Doctor, but I think Chibnall's just wasn't the right writer for this, and the style they went with it didn't really work. But I'm looking forward to tonight's episode. I think it'll be fun.
I'll speed through mine if you want.
Yeah,
we're hour and a half, 90 minutes in. This film's nearly as long as Annabelle.
Yeah.
So I watched the new Hellraiser.
Okay, all right.
Long story short, it was all right. There were some missed opportunities. There are some really good ideas. I love how they really build on the Leviathan. For those who haven't seen Hellraiser, the Leviathan is like what the Cenobites kind of come from. It's very Lovecraftian. They really delve into that way more than the original. I think if I had to be really honest, I think where it lacks is they don't go far enough in some places. And I don't mean just unnecessary gore, because I'm never a big fan of, just show me someone getting tortured. I don't, unless it has a purpose. But this is where I kind of felt this film fell short, because this film, the purpose is that. And for the first half, they really tease it in some really good, one of the first shots, which I don't want to ruin, but is spectacular, with the first person who gets, let's just call it, Cenobited. And I very much was like, what a fantastic way of an homage with doing it differently. And the middle is where it falls for me. The middle is a bit waffle. Like, oh, we need to run the time. We just need to run it. But the ending, I think, serves a good purpose. And I think they are going to make some sequels to this. And I will say that I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel. I think that the actress who plays Pinhead did it superbly. I think that they didn't overdo it. And I also think that the cast was good. There was actually a story. I said this to Rhea when we were watching it, that similar to the Evil Dead remake, they make a purpose for why people would want to go to the box, rather than people just picking it up and then playing with it. They actually have a purpose to why people are like, I want to solve the puzzle box. And unlike the original, which this isn't a spoiler, it is in the trailer, but the puzzle box has levels to it. So once you do the square, it then changes its shape to a different shape, which then you have to solve that shape, and it changes to a different shape, and it's different levels of the Leviathan. So you've got, like, sexual pleasure, love, desire, pain, power, and they did that quite well. But I think it just falls flat a little bit in the middle, because they desperately didn't know what to do. And I also think for their amazing designs that they really did go all out on, they don't show them enough, and they have nothing to do in the middle. They literally, there's a really cool Cenobite, which I think, Kev, especially, you'll agree that is probably really cool to see. He does nothing. He's in one shot, and it's like, you, in the build up to this, you built him up as, we can't wait to show this Cenobite, and it's one shot. And I was like, you could have used that second half to have fun with this, like really go into
the next one.
So yeah, I would give it, I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think it's good enough that I'm excited to see, and where I won't spoil it at all, but where the ending leaves it.
Is that coming on Disney?
Well, this is the thing. It should do, because it's Hulu, but I don't know if they've actually figured out a plan yet, but I imagine so. I would love it if it did come for Halloween.
Yeah. For most Hulu titles come to Disney Plus. Sometimes they go to Amazon Prime though, so it'll be interesting.
Also, I just hope it gets a UK release in some sort of way, because I will agree though, this, unlike I can't remember the newest Predator. I can't remember what it was called again, but
Prey, was it?
Prey, that was it. Unlike Prey, where I thought this could have been in the cinema, I did have some issues with the CGI, but this film I do think should go to Hulu, because I don't think they have honed in too much on what Hellraiser's about. But I do think that they've got the mythology and the story down, which is what I like. So good. And the acting was great. Like, I think the acting, all of the cast, there was not one cast member where I was like, you're shit. I thought all of them served a good purpose. I watched I also watched the final episode of Rings of Power.
Yeah.
The twists that I had called in the first episode, which I just knew, I was like,
See,
yes.
I didn't predict that twist at all.
I kind of gloated a bit. Me and Rhea have been watching them, and Rhea had a different idea of who, let's just say, a certain character could be. And I very much at the very first episode was like, that's that character. I mean, everything about that character is so. They're doing a Lord of the Rings level sort of twist of who is this character, but I was like, that's good writing to change it on its head in an opposite way. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I just hope, my only thing is that I just hope that with season 2 we don't lose the momentum. I think that for people who are like, again, I won't rant on this, but for people who are there going, you've ruined Tolkien's work. Oh, the timeline doesn't make sense. It's like you just gotta, like, I hate to break it, but the way they ended it, I was like, yeah, we're on track to the Rings of Power.
It was interesting to see some of the reviews, not from the twats on just tweeting from their bedrooms, but from interesting Telegraph and the Guardian and stuff like that. They were initially reviewing it episode by episode and saying, oh, this isn't very good, is it? And then when it got to episode 6, it's like, okay, actually this is getting good now. And then eventually it got good. I think they were building up, and then they've done quite well with it.
There were about 2 episodes, I think we said when we were watching it, that we were like, so the episode where we explore, I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say where we explore a certain region of Middle Earth, which is very well known. The episode after that I felt was a bit slow and boring, a little bit of, well, there's not much happening. This is clearly an aftermath sort of scenario. But we were a bit worried about the finale because we were like, what are they going to do? But I think the reveal and how they've actually now putting in motion of what we know is going slowly into what's going to happen. I thought it was good.
It actually made me it made me very happy, but it was that kind of, because you kind of worry about obviously where the writing will end up, and it kind of, okay, if we were to accept all the flaws in the writing from before, you're kind of worrying about where they're going to end up. It's like, okay, is this going to end up somewhere shit or somewhere good? And I think happily it went somewhere good, and that kind of, it made me admire the writing more. Obviously there are still some flaws, I think, but I think those are first season flaws. I think we're going to see a lot of
an increase
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
What else? So that was the Rings of Power. I watched House of the Dragon, which is really good. I'm looking forward. Very simple with this one. I think it's good. It's kind of returning to its form of what the original seasons of Game of Thrones kind of really did well. My issue is that obviously know the timeline of House of the Dragon completely. With some little elements where I'm like, oh, they're doing this differently, or oh, I can't remember this. But I just hope that they don't try and speed through. Like, I know George R.R. Martin has said that he wants to have a good amount of seasons to tell the whole story.
I think 4, didn't he say? 4 seasons?
Yeah, and I just hope he sticks with it. I don't want a season 8 of Game of Thrones where we just go like, oh, we can't be asked anymore, throw everything in one episode just quickly, let's skip by it. So that's really good. I'm looking forward to the final. Ironically, I think it's tonight in America, whatever, but tomorrow for the UK, or it is tonight for the UK. I was very excited to learn that The Last of Us is coming to Sky Atlantic, because similar to House of the Dragon, it's premiering on HBO Max, so that'll show.
Usually the Sky get the HBO shows.
So I'm over the moon for that. Well, they haven't given a month
next year.
I've seen the trailer though. It looks amazing.
Although I am, as I said last time, I'm just hesitant on Bella Ramsey's portrayal, but don't know. And then my final watch was She-Hulk, which I imagine Jess as well. I know you watched. I'd love to hear what you thought of this. Just, I guess, without going into what too much of like the whole episode because whatever. I think for me, I'm 50-50 on this series, because for the people who out there who are like, oh my god, she breaks the fourth wall, she broke the fourth wall, read a She-Hulk comic and you'll learn that that is she did, you know, she broke the fourth wall way before Deadpool did. And a lot of people are like, you know, oh well, I didn't like how she was so, you know, meta. And it's like, she's always been meta. I mean, one of the best moments in a comic is where the villain is about to strike her down and says a big line of dialogue, and she rips the paper and is like, this is my comic, I decide how it ends. This is not how it should go. This is just lazy writing. And I see a lot of people going like, oh, well, Deadpool is copying Deadpool. And it's like, that to me is unfair criticism. But what I will argue on the opposite side is, with how this series ended, I feel like it went slightly overboard with some of its meta attributes of how it was trying to. And I like certain things. I liked how it was seeming to go one way and she stopped the episode. This is not a spoiler, but she stopped the episode and said it should go this way. Like, let's really hone in on the writing. But what I didn't like was a certain robot where it was very much talking in a big room and doing like innuendos to the camera of like, you know, your favorite character, I fucked him, ooh, and it was like, well, to me, that's not meta. That's like the writer going like, we know on Twitter you'll bash it, and it's like, when meta, I don't mind meta if it's like, let's break the fourth wall. Deadpool is a prime example of what they've done with the films that I like, where it's like, oh, do you think this is going to happen? This is going to happen. Well, let's change that sort of thing. Whereas I feel like She-Hulk, the series, really did try and kind of go, oh, well, all of you complain about these things, so stop complaining. You know, I think it's fair to say, obviously, like Daredevil showed up in this, and I wrote this in our group chat that I was just felt like he's done great. Obviously, it's the same actor. I think it's Charlie Cox who plays him. He's a great actor. He plays Deadpool exactly the same in the sense of his the way he delivers the lines and everything. But I do feel that they've made it a bit more PG, which is understandable because the Netflix series kind of went more darker. What I don't like is when characters are there, like almost in your face, going, "Hey, did you like it that I fucked him?" And it's just like, well, you saying that, you invoke the reaction. Like, let's have fun with it. Like, I don't care. Like that. Yes, that's part of an episode, but to me, it's like, have more fun with the story. Like, I love how it's like, oh, you thought the episode was going to go this way. No, we've done that before. That's boring. Let's actually have some character development. I was like, that's really clever. What I just don't like it where the writers are almost like, we know you're bashing it on Twitter. Let's make fun of it. Because and I feel like that, to me, it stops. You mentioned it earlier. It stops being that really fun thing where it's like, oh, this story's building up to an end game. I can't wait to see how the pieces fit. Instead, that's just like, well, the show. But equally, the She-Hulk, the comics have always been a very standalone, fun story, lawyer-esque show. And for that, I really did. I liked it. I think that I would give the series as a whole, I think I'd give it a 7 again, because I think that for the things I don't like, the good outweighs it. And it is, I think the actress who plays She-Hulk is great. I do think some of the lines in it, though, are cringy. In that last episode, they have let's just say the villain, who throughout the whole of the series has been very like deceiving, and I liked that. But then in the last episode becomes this, you know, yeah, bro, I'm gonna take you down, bro. And I was like, why are you going this way with this? Like, this to me is just so shoehorned of, we want to portray society, and it's like, I know that that's there, but I try and watch stuff to get away from that. I don't need it in my shows where like I really want to invest. And I, you know, it's like WandaVision. I really loved that show. Me and Dad watched that through COVID, and it was great. And I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's boring. Nothing's happening. Where's like Mephisto? Where's the big villain who's gonna Marvel battle?" And my least favorite episode was the last episode where they did kind of go back to, "Oh, we need a big fight in the city and effects." Whereas I think this show, for the most part, did a really good job of doing a lawyer show and having fun with it. But in that last episode, really tried to cram in like, "Oh, we know you'll bash this shit either way, so we'll kind of take the piss out of you a bit." And I was like, well, you can fourth wall break, but yeah, maybe don't. So
Right.
yeah, I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Nice, Jess. 7. I'm not going to watch it though.
Cringy.
Yeah.
I liked the episode before the last one more than anything else. Yeah, and then I watched Malevolent with Florence Pugh. Love her. She's great. Terrible film. Don't watch it.
It is shit.
One of the actors in it, literally, he's like in pain or like in certain situations, and you can tell he's trying not to smile. Like he's like smirking through the whole film, and then I looked him up, and he's had like barely any jobs after that. So that's good. But that's so bad. So yeah, don't watch it. That's it.
Okay, Jess. Well, next week because we're obviously 1 hour 46 in, which is quite long for us. So we've got Annabelle Creation will be the next episode, 97, I think. Dan's hot pick Beelzebub, or wherever you say it. So you want to follow us on Twitter, it's the Bones Horror Pod. Instagram's Bones Horror Pod. You can email us at boneshorrorpod@gmail.com. And that's about it, really. So many thanks for watching and listening. And we'll see you next time. I think it'll be after Halloween, though. Pretty sure. So we'll see you all then. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
See you later.